Okay, so now I'm going to give the demonstration on painting the brick wall. So I'll set that aside. And before we get started, you might actually want to take a look at your drawing here. I can still see, I'm trying to come in closer here. I can still see some of these little hash marks here from every half inch. So I guess I would suggest taking an eraser and just erasing those out of there. Once you put the watercolor paint over the top of those pencil lines, I don't think that you'll be able to clean that up very well. Again, that's just my personal preference. Kind of going for, a nice quality look here, and it's really nothing but a preliminary mark. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those, and for quality, it would be a good idea if you went ahead and did that too. Alright, get that cleaned up. Now, here at school, what we're going to do is we're going to paint on just top of some old scrap posters that we had here at the building. And then I'm going to actually flip my paper over. And because this is not true watercolor, now if you're working at home and you actually have watercolor and it's like a heavier paper, that is awesome. But I just know from past experience with this tag board that we're using, once we get water on it, it does start to curl. Just because it's not a true watercolor paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over, and I pre-tore off some masking tape, so hopefully you just have some sort of tape at home. And then I'm just going to create some little loops, and I'm basically just going to put those little loops right down in the corners of my paper. One in each corner. Whoops. There we go. One more to go here, then I'll have 4 loops of tape. And one in each corner. Alright, now, what I'm going to do is place that down, try to get that centered in my screen. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to lightly pat that down. Alright, now, for paint. I'm just using this Crayola watercolors. It's decent quality. It is what it is. It's, it'll work for us. And so then I just have a little container of water. And, just to be safe, you don't need a lot of water. I only fill up my container so it's like maybe, about an inch full of water in the bottom. Okay? Because if I accidentally spill it, I'm just going to spill a little bit and not the whole cup of water everywhere. Okay. So then for the watercolor part, I have one example here. I used brown, orange, and then my red. Now some other students, let me grab some other examples here real quick. Somebody was like, you know what, I don't really want the reddish brick, the traditional color, so then they kind of made like this bluish, gray color. So you could experiment and paint it on a test strip of paper to make sure that you like the color. And speaking of that, I need to grab a piece of test paper so I can see what it's going to look like here. Before I actually paint on my real thing. Alright, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've put a little bit of water on my paintbrush. And this is actually a watercolor paintbrush. Let me talk about that real quick. It's pretty flimsy bristles, and they'll actually hold a lot of water. And so if you can find a bigger bristled paintbrush like this, that would be great. I'm gonna put a little bit of water in each one of those colors that I want to use. Now I've already done this ahead of time. I'm just kind of showing you how I put that water in there. I just drip a little water in like that off to the side. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to take my paintbrush and kind of swirl in there. And this is actually going to be my mixing palette out here on the inside lid. I'm going to kind of clean that out a little bit. I'm going to grab some orange, mix that in with it. think I'll grab a little bit of red. Because why not? Alright. So, that's pretty intense. However, if I left it like that, I still think my brick wall would probably end up showing up here. I'll slide that over so you can see my little paint swatch there. And I actually think that I'm going to go ahead and use that just because I know that my watercolors are actually going to fade a little bit once they dry. But I don't have enough mixed up out here to paint my whole piece of tag board here. And remember, you're going to have two of them. So I'm just doing a demonstration on one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some more of this brown. And whoops, I dribbled into my purple, so I'm going to have to clean that up later. Grab some more orange. Some more red. And, you know, I'm actually going to dilute this down a little bit. So to dilute watercolor, just add some more water to it. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit more water to that. Diluting it is just going to thin it out a little bit, and my color is not going to be so intense. I think that looks pretty good. I think I have enough of it made to cover this entire paper now. And so then from here, the pigment of that watercolor kind of settles a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of lightly push this around in here, just kind of stir it up. And then really, I'm just going to go fast, and I'm just going to quickly brush that on there. Now, again, here in the classroom, we are using tag board. So, what does that mean? You can kind of see these darker little spots starting to show up. It's actually the paper disintegrating. So, if I sit here and scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub in the same area, I'm going to end up tearing that paper up, and it's going to end up kind of falling apart, okay? So I'm just going to work my way across my painting here. Oops, missed a little spot up here at the top. And again, this is kind of like, you can see that I'm swiping the paint off the edge of my paper. And so if you're working at home, you know, make sure that you're working on a surface that will clean up, okay? The pigments and even the Crayola watercolor, they will stain, okay? So, you know, you might want to check and make sure that wherever you're working is okay with your parents or legal guardian, whoever it is that you're staying with at this time, okay? So, I kind of like that it's a little bit lighter here and darker here. You know, brick, they're not all the same. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as is, and I'm actually done with that. As it dries, again, it's going to lighten up a little bit, and so then at this point, I would go ahead and I would paint my other one, and it looks like I actually have enough paint left over here to go ahead and paint my second piece of brick wall, because remember, you need two, one for the front of your book, that eventually we will be cutting out your painted letters, which we still need to do, and we're going to glue that down, and then we need the other one for the back. So remember, you're doing this to two of those papers and painting it to look like brick then. Alright? Okay. We'll see you in the next video.